Today, we're digging into a really gripping legal case that makes you ask a pretty fundamental question. What's the real difference between just suspecting someone did something and actually proving it? The whole story hangs on that one idea.
Okay, so picture this. A man is found guilty of one of the most horrific crimes you can even imagine, the rape and murder of a 4-year-old child. A trial court convicts him. A high court upholds that conviction. So the case seems totally closed, right? But then the nation's highest court steps in and acquits him completely. So you have to be asking, how on earth does that happen? Let's get into it.
All right, to really get why the final verdict came out the way it did, we have to go right back to the beginning. Back to a truly terrible crime and what, for all the world, looked like a very straightforward conviction.
Things moved really fast here. On May 22, 2001, a little girl named Pooja just disappears. Only 2 days later, her body is found. The postmortem reveals evidence of a monstrous sexual assault and murder. And just 3 days after that, a man named Raj Kumar Singh is in cuffs. You know, the legal process that followed seemed to back up everything the police were saying. The trial court found Raj Kumar Singh guilty on every single charge and gave him life in prison. He appealed, of course, but the high court shot it down. They said, nope, the conviction and the sentence stand. From the outside looking in, it really looked like justice had been served. So what was it that made the prosecution's case seem so strong to two separate courts? Well, they built their entire argument on what they claimed was a totally unbreakable chain of circumstantial evidence.
See, there were no eyewitnesses who actually saw the crime happen, so the prosecution had to connect the dots, and they did it with 4 key things. First, the way the accused behaved right after the girl went missing. Second, he was in the area. He had the opportunity. Third, there was medical evidence that seemed to connect injuries on both the victim and the accused. And finally, and this is a big one, they recovered incriminating stuff, like blood-stained clothes. Altogether, these links formed a chain that pointed straight at him.
But when this case finally got all the way to the Supreme Court, that supposedly airtight chain of evidence, it just started to fall apart, link by devastating link. Let's see exactly how that happened. So, the most damning piece of evidence about his behavior was the family's own testimony. They said that just a day after Pooja went missing, Raj Kumar Singh actually came to them, demanded 2,000 rupees, and promised he could bring her back. I mean, on its face, that's a bombshell, right? It sounds like he knew exactly where she was. But hold on. Here's the first major crack. This explosive detail, this demand for money, it's nowhere to be found in the first information report, the FIR. That's the very first initial complaint filed with the police. So you have to ask yourself, if this really happened on May 23rd, wouldn't that be the absolute first thing you'd tell the police in your official report 1 day later? The fact it's missing, that's a massive red flag. And the inconsistencies just kept piling up, especially around when he was arrested. The family's story was that they caught the suspect themselves and handed him over to the police around May 23rd or 24th, but the official police record, it says he was arrested way later, on May 27th. So that leads to the million-dollar question, right? What in the world happened in those missing 3 to 4 days? This unexplained gap between when the family says he was caught and when the police officially say they arrested him, it throws some serious doubt on the entire investigation's timeline and, frankly, its integrity.
Okay, next up, the physical evidence. A huge part of the prosecution's case rested on this claim that the accused clothes, stained with blood, were found near the victim's body. Now that would be a powerful, powerful link to the crime scene. But here's the thing. The prosecution's own case completely contradicted itself. Another one of their own witnesses testified that when he saw the accused sleeping in a Jeep around that time, his clothes were clean, no bloodstains. This just completely pulls the rug out from under one of their most critical pieces of physical evidence.
And the problems with the forensic evidence didn't stop there. The main investigating officer, he testified under oath that he'd seized a white, semen-like substance from the crime scene, which, would seem to point directly to the charge of rape.
Well, the Supreme Court basically called shenanigans on that one. They pointed out a major scientific flaw. Semen just doesn't stay a white substance after hours of exposure. It changes. The officer's testimony was, in their words, scientifically implausible. This didn't just destroy that piece of evidence, it cast a ton of doubt on the officer himself.
And honestly, the problems just kept coming. The case was just full of holes. For instance, a silver bracelet the victim was wearing went missing. and was never found. The court found the official story of how the body was discovered on a vacant roof to be, and I'm quoting here, unnatural and implausible. The accused had injuries the prosecution couldn't even explain, which could mean he was in a fight with someone else entirely. And maybe the most shocking thing of all, key witnesses admitted the police made them sign blank papers. The whole case was just falling apart at the seams.
So after going through every single one of these broken links in the chain, the Supreme Court was finally ready to deliver its stunning verdict.
Pointing to all the contradictions, the things that were left out, the scientifically impossible evidence, the court declared that the chain of circumstantial evidence wasn't just broken, it was completely inconclusive. So the convictions from both the lower courts were thrown out. Raj Kumar Singh was acquitted of all charges.
The court's entire reasoning came down to this foundational principle of criminal law. I mean, it's basically the golden thread of justice. As this quote explains, if you can look at the evidence and see two reasonable possibilities, one where the guy is guilty and one where he's innocent, the court has to, it is required to, choose the one that favors the accused.
And this is what it all boils down to. This case so powerfully clarified this core legal idea for the whole justice system, the huge difference between may be and must be.
To really get this, we have to talk about circumstantial evidence. It's not like an eyewitness who says, "I saw him do it." It's evidence that requires you to make a logical leap, an inference. A fingerprint is a perfect example. It proves someone was there, sure, but it doesn't prove they committed the crime. You have to infer their guilt from that fact. And when your whole case is built only on these inferences, the standard of proof has to be incredibly high.
And this slide, this is the heart of it all. The prosecution's case was all maybe. It raised a lot of suspicion, it was based on conjecture, it absolutely showed a possibility of guilt. But the law, it demands must be. It requires proof, it requires certainty, it requires a conclusion that is beyond all reasonable doubt. The prosecution just never managed to cross that gap.
And the court put it so well in its final judgment with this quote: "The mental distance between may be and must be is quite large. This isn't just a small step we're talking about, it's a giant leap. And it's a leap our justice system is specifically designed not to make when the evidence is weak, contradictory, and inconclusive. So the bottom line is, suspicion, no matter how strong it is, can never, ever replace proof."
And that's what we're left with, this really difficult final question. This case started with an unimaginable tragedy and a desperate need for justice for a little girl. But it ends up highlighting this huge challenge for any legal system. In our passionate search to punish the guilty, how do we build in enough safeguards to make sure that innocent people don't become victims of that very same system? It's an incredibly delicate balance, and the stakes just couldn't be any higher.